column C is the disbursements column, and that's what your budgets are right now. And I know you're not finished. I know you're not done. But right now, for instance, in the general fund, your expenditures are about 5.3 million budgeted, but I realize it's not done. And what you have to spend based on estimated receipts is 5,471,000. So if you could balance your budget with those receipts, that would be tremendous, because what that will leave you with is an ending cash balance of probably over 1.5 million. It says 1.8 now, but that's based on a $5.3 million budget. And your cash reserves over to the far right in column F, we recommend that in a major operating fund that you do not have ending cash that is less than 15% of what you spend. 15%. You are around 35%, and you have been for the last couple of years, which is very strong, and it's been stable. It's been stable. You used a little bit of cash reserves in 2025, but for the most part, it's been stable. And I know you are reliant to a certain extent on the riverboat revenue. That hasn't been decreasing at a large rate as it has in the past, and maybe it's because of that whole harmless. But I remember being here a couple of years ago, and we were projecting 10% decreases in riverboat revenue for the next 5 years. Well, now we've dropped that percentage down to 2.4% based on historical. So it's not, we don't have that severe decline, but that doesn't mean you may not experience it. So, I know the council and others have tried not to be so reliant on that, but you do have a good principal balance that's earning quite a bit of interest for you, and a small portion of that goes into the general fund and the riverboat fund. But that's good that you have that to fall back on in case you need it. But if we just want to leave the riverboat piece out of it, you've got about 5,471,000 to spend in the county general. And for you, the commissioners, I don't know what you're focusing in on this evening, but Cume Bridge, obviously that doesn't bring in a whole lot, but it is driven a lot by net assessed value, but it's also within your maximum levy limitation. So even if you wanted to increase the revenue in this fund, you could, but it would take away from the health fund or the reassessment fund or the general fund. So that you're only looking at about close to 300,000 that you would bring in receipts. And right now it's a little bit over that, but that's okay because you've got such strong cash reserves in there. I wouldn't recommend doing anything else with that. Because you should end 2027 with about $1.2 million. And that's a type of fund that goes up and down depending on what your projects are. Cume Capital Development Fund is another one that's driven really by your net assessed value. And this one is additional monies that's above and beyond your maximum levy. So it's a good fund to have. That should bring in about 211,000. And right now the budget, it's only 89,000. So you could, if you wanted to, add to that budget if you had anything. And within this bigger report on page 41, there's a huge paragraph that shows what Cume Capital Development can be used for, but it's on page 41. It's basically just about any capital project you can think of. So that's why that's a good fund to have, because you can, if you're paying for capital out of other funds and you're trying to find a funding source, you can pay for it out of Cume Capital Development, but obviously you don't bring in a whole lot, so it would be small, very small capital purchases. A lot of counties use it for like IT equipment, maybe purchase a vehicle or two out of there. But it is capital related.
So could we purchase the code enforcement vehicle?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then you just had software updates or something that was,
We had a new server.
that goes out of that.
It couldn't. It didn't, but it could.
Yeah, okay.
The next fund is EMS, and again, here you've got a balanced budget so far. I don't know if you're planning to change it, but we're estimating receipts of 1.2 million. The budget as it stands now, as proposed, is 1.15 million. Not sure if they're finished with that or not, but that's again stable budget, plenty of cash reserves. It's about 50% cash reserves. The health fund is is the only fund, I think, in all of this that I have a little bit of concern. And here's why, is because you remember that Health First Indiana grant that came about? Starting in 2026, those monies really dropped. And we kind of expected that would happen. I'm trying to find it in my report, but I can remember it. So it dropped, well, actually, the fund is in this report. Let me find it. It is page 29. So on page 29, you can see where in 2024, again, page 29, up at the top on line 2, it says Health First Indiana. That was the grant money. So in 2024, 155,000 came in. That was great. 2025, it went up to almost 300,000. But now look, 26 and 27, it's going to be held at 81,279. And then after that, it takes legislative approval to have any more. And we don't expect that approval to come, but it could. But why I'm a little bit concerned, I mean, I know the health department's working very hard at balancing the budget and trying to make this work, is that when this money goes away, if there's salaries and wages getting paid from here or any other things, it doesn't look like there's much salary, but there's supplies, other services and charges, either that has to be eliminated or moved back to the regular health fund. And if you move it back to your county health fund, you may have to shift property tax from general over to that health fund to support it. So eventually, not this year, and maybe it's probably going to be for the 2029 budget, the council really is going to have to decide, do you want to provide additional financial support to the health department through the property tax? I mean, right now, the fund is, that there's a 74% cash reserve, or that's what we're projecting. It can handle using its reserves, but there's going to be a point where you can't continue to use your reserves for recurring costs. And I had mentioned that last year as well. And I think the health department is fully aware of that.
They moved one position already from the 1161 into the 1159 with
Gotcha.
this
Gotcha.
budget here
Okay.
that we have.
So yeah, they're well aware of it, and it's just something that we'll have to keep an eye on. Because right now, if you look at this one-page summary, they are outspending their receipts for 2027, at least based on their proposed budget, by about $54,000. So yes, they can fund it, but is that a sustainable budget? No, they can sustain it for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they're going to have to make some changes. That was the health fund. Yeah, we just talked about that. And the Health First Indiana is right below it, and we just talked about that. So they're spending what they're bringing in basically from that Health First Indiana, which is fine. They can spend it until it's out of money. But again, starting in 2028, there's no guarantee of any more grant funding. Local Road and Street is the next fund that I have on the summary. It's going to bring in about $207,000. This fund right now, at least as budgeted, can't be funded. And here's the reason why, is because the state's going to look at this Local Road and Street fund, and they're going to assume that you're going to spend everything that you have budgeted for this year in addition to this $295,000. So if we submit it with $295,000, the DLGF will certainly cut it by $62,000. So just know that you can do one of two things. You can cut this 2027 proposed budget, or the council can do a reduction of appropriation, saying, "Hey, we're not gonna spend X amount of dollars." And I know that's more related to the council, but just letting you know that can take place. Public safety, pretty stable. We're estimating about $478,000 coming in. The budget right now is a little bit over, but not by enough that concerns me. And just know that we have the new local income tax structure that's coming down the road. It's now been delayed to adoption for 2028, implementation in 29, but now they're saying distributions won't happen until 2030. But I bring that to your attention because anything you're funding currently out of public safety local income tax will have to be moved to the general fund, probably starting in 2030. But you also have the ability to adopt a county services local income tax, which should pick up those additional costs. Next fund is
When can that be adopted?
it has to be adopted by October 1st of 2028. So we still have some time to think about that. And the maximum rate is 1.2%. And in this financial plan, we assume that you would adopt the entire 1.2%. So just to give you an idea of what would that bring in, about what you're getting now.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's good. But it's good, but that means you'll probably have to go to that max.
so they're just moving the shells.
They are. They're moving the shells because you're supposed to get property tax relief, which I gotta be honest with you, some of the models that we've run, I don't think there's really much in the way of relief because assessed values are gonna continue to go up and that's, people are still gonna pay more on their
Okay,
property
when
tax.
we're talking about this to the community a year from now,
Mhm.
they're gonna hear tax increase, but
And
it's
they're
not.
gonna, and then what they're gonna, yeah, I mean, they're gonna probably see more coming out of their paychecks, although that's not very noticeable as much as it is as the property tax increases are more noticeable. And I think that's what people are still gonna be talking about is I still see increases on my property tax bill, even with all this property tax relief. Because assessed values just keep climbing. You're not raising your rates, but assessed values keep
Right.
going up. I mean, you can't provide property tax relief in that type of environment. But it is kind of a shell game because I think the intent was, okay, we're gonna provide all these credits to taxpayers, which they did. But now you all may have to increase the income tax rate. So you're not gonna pay as much in property tax, that was the intent, but you'll pay more in income tax.
Okay,
Yeah. Other funds maybe we should look at, I mean, your motor vehicle highway fund is in stable condition and right now the budget is good. I don't know how much more you have to add to that. Riverboat is good, stable condition.
but this,
Oh.
back to the motor vehicle.
Oh, yeah,
That doesn't get affected by the wheel tax though.
it does not. Well, I mean, you're gonna get wheel tax to come into that fund that,
Okay,
well, that you can use, but what I want to talk about, I forgot to mention on this, the motor vehicle highway is that, we've had that gas tax holiday. It's scheduled to end September 3rd, but you have been getting reimbursements. In fact, you just got your second reimbursement from the state because they're trying to make you whole, so.
he's not gonna end that before the election.
So
That's what it did
we,
November the 30th.
yeah, so we have built in case that does go on. But still, I think you're pretty stable there. Yeah. Yep. Riverboat, stable, that's, I mean, we are building in that the casino revenue is gonna go down 2.4% per year for the next several years. We hope that's conservative, but that's a whole lot better than it was really going down, like 10% a year. So it's kind of a little bit more stable now. Statewide 911, that's another one I wanted to talk about. So statewide 911, you're just like almost every other county I work with in the state. Those statewide 911 revenues, which are generated from basically like your Verizon bill or your cell phone bills, that is actually going down. It's on a downward trend, not by a lot, but it's definitely not increasing. And that's because of those track phones that people buy. Those aren't taxed like a regular cell phone is taxed. That needs to be changed, in my opinion, in legislation, but you're just not getting that much revenue in. So you may, at some point, have to start shifting some of those costs to the general fund. As you can see, we're projecting that you're gonna utilize probably another $31,000 if you stay with your $200,000 budget. And your cash reserves are below that 15%. It's not like you can't fund that, but there may be a point where you might have to start shifting those costs over to general.
So that fund, Gail, that funds the 911 salaries or operation?
Some of them, some dispatch.
Yeah.
And it has the IT in there, some of that, like what their vendors, to their vendors.
Okay.
I'm not for sure what the increase is there. I'd have to go back and look at the actual budget. I can send you guys all these budgets again in the morning.
Another fund probably to make mention of is the reassessment fund. That fund sometimes doesn't spend its whole budget, so it looks like it's outspending its receipts, but it historically doesn't spend the entire budget. But anyway, it does have a strong cash reserve, so if it needed to, it could, but we'll have to keep an eye on it to make sure the cash reserves don't fall below 15%. So I guess in all, I think that right now the county is pretty stable financially. I mean, the riverboat does help. If that riverboat revenue, starts declining by a rapid pace, that might put you in a little bit of a bind, but it doesn't look like you're completely reliant on that as far as your recurring costs, which is good. So I think that's the way you want to stay. I don't know what you typically use it for. Is it for capital mostly? Or a lot of it you don't use because you've got a lot of it invested. So, yeah.
So for the public, are we a letter A, B, C?
I don't want to create. I would say that you all are doing a relatively good job balancing your budgets, and that's what you got to really focus on. I know you talked about 3%, 4%. Should we increase our budgets? I would more focus on the bottom line, which like county general is a good example. Keep that budget within the 5.47 million. That's what I say, because, I often get asked, well, should we give a 3.5% raise? Well, tell me what that is, and let's see if we can get it within this 5.5 million, because maybe there's some line items that really are a little bit inflated, and we can reduce those to make sure we can fit in that raise. That, I would rather, when you're working on budgets, I would rather you look at kind of what can we afford rather than we're just going to give an across the board, increase. I think I feel better that riverboat revenue isn't on that rapid decline like it was, but you never know. The riverboat could pull out. We just don't know, right? But again, if it does pull out, I have some reason to think that you guys will be able to carry on. You do have that principal amount that you have invested, and the interest alone is something that can help bridge funding gaps.
Yeah, because we're pushing $1 million a year on interest between the Indiana Trust.
I do have
Two.
that information.
Okay.
It doesn't all go into general, but let me see what we're estimating, about it's close to $1 million between general and riverboat. Yep. And it looks like the investment balance is I have until at the end of June, $27.6 million.
Yeah. I had between 26 and 28 in my head.
Yeah. So I think if you can, keep that balance invested and use the interest earnings, even if the boat shuts down or whatever, I think you'll still be. And that is because you're not still reliant. If I saw that you were utilizing $3 to $5 million in your general fund to help fund the general fund from Riverboat, I think that would be a situation, a negative situation. But I think you're reasonably stable. It's just, again, I say it all the time, please try to balance your budgets with your receipts. That's the most important thing that you can do. Because if your recurring costs start creeping up above what you bring in annually, you're eventually going to run into a situation. Yeah. I wasn't going to go through this detailed report, but I'd be happy if there's something specific that you have a question on. I can tell you that with each of these cash flow schedules, there's a graph that kind of shows the fund's financial position. So like this is general for an example. This is page 13. So that red dotted line would be the 15% cash reserve. So we don't want you to go below that. The green dotted line is 50%. That's the ideal, but most counties can't have 6 months of reserves. But if you can, that's great. But look, you've been right in between, and that's really where we want to see you. And we actually have it kind of on an upward trend. But again, that's because your budget's not finished. It's really driving this is driven by your 2027 proposed budget at 5.3, and you might have more that you need to add to that. But, if you look at the historical, this is where we want to see you, right in between there. So around 25%, 30% cash reserve, and that's exactly where you've been. So, and you did utilize some reserves in 2025, but as long as you don't do that every year, you're okay, because you do have some reserves that you can use. But each fund, you'll be able to see kind of what the trajectory is for your cash reserves.
Okay. All right, again, thanks for coming down.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions or anything that you're concerned about, or? I know township mergers is something that the commissioners will have to be involved in at some point. I haven't seen the grading for this county yet. They don't have it out. But by the end of the year, the Department of Local Government Finance is going to put out a report that shows which townships will be forced to merge. I don't know if that's the case here. I haven't looked.
Because didn't we start talking about this last year?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it that they want the townships to merge?
Because there's some townships out there that are underperforming. Like they provide very little in the way of services. So part of that grading scale is how much poor relief do you provide? Some townships aren't providing any poor relief or fire services. They're contracting fire services. So why are they there? Why are they levying property tax?
So that condenses the trustees.
Yes, it certainly does. So if any of your townships score a 4 or more, that's a bad thing. That means they're going to be forced to merge. And that's where the county commissioners will come into play, because you're going to help determine who they're going to merge with. We can help with that. I want you to know that we can help with that. Let's wait and see what the grading is at the end of the year. Or I think DLGF's working on it now, and we can help you determine what would be the best. If you have any. I don't know if you have any, because I haven't looked.
Yeah, but for the community, it's not the commissioners that's forcing this.
No,
It's the state.
It's the state, yes. But they want the commissioners to be involved in making that determination, because the state doesn't know who would be best to merge with. And really, it's going to come down to whose boundaries are they touching?
Yeah.
So.
There's a lot of money that has to be shuffled around.
Yep, there is. And we could see a little bit of cost savings, because you're not going to need 2 township boards now, just one. You don't need 2 township trustees. So we're hoping to see a little bit of cost savings in this as well to the taxpayer.
I'm just curious. So if that did happen, let's use Jefferson Posey.
Yeah.
Would those trustees run against each other?
No.
I know I'm getting ahead of the game. I'm just kind of curious how things play out.
The way it seems to be written now, and they could use some clarifying language, but it seems to be written now that whoever the forced township is, the one that's forced to merge, that trustee will just be eliminated.
Okay.
Yes. And that board will be eliminated.
Okay.
So the merging township, they're
the winners. Well, the merging township's the loser.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
The one that they merge into is the winners, because they get all the money, basically. They don't, but they won't.
And I'm jumping around here.
Mhm.
Like, we don't get anything from the sports book, from the casinos. Are you hearing anything at the State House on that?
No, I'm not. I think there was some proposed language last year, but it never went anywhere. So no.
Because that's a large portion. the county doesn't get a penny from.
Needs to be a change in legislation,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thanks again,
thank
safe
you.
drive.
Uh-huh.
I'm doing next Tuesday, Wednesday.
I'll know here in a little bit. About Tuesday.
So it's the worst case Wednesday. I'm even good, Thursday night. I didn't think about Thursday.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be it for this meeting. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?